Welcome back to another template design walkthrough. This is a new release just put out. This one is called Current. And so we're going to take a look at the layer options here and just run down to see how this is set up, how you can easily change and customize this for colors and things, and just see what options exist in here. Alright, so starting at the top, as per usual, we have our color grading layers. You can see these are in a group. We can expand the group. There's a couple different layers in here that's affecting color and contrast. So you can always change the opacity of those layers, turn them off or on as needed, or make changes to the layers themselves. But that's there just to give it some final color and contrast work on the images. Below that we have our facial highlight boosts. So we have two layers here. The lower one is for lighter skin tones. The upper one is for darker skin tones. And that's basically just to make those facial highlights pop out a little bit more. And we'll show that as soon as we turn a subject on. Directly below that we have some text layers. So this is our year. You can see down at the bottom here, so simple text, just to double click, and you can just type in your new text there, no problem, and apply it. Below that we have a text group. So if you expand this group, this is our first and last name that's preset in here. This is in a group because you can see the layer style effects are applied to the group. That way, as the text runs together, the effect kind of outlines everything as one block instead of two separate blocks. So that's why it's inside of a group like that. All right, below that, we have our text frame. So that's the frame going around the name right there. And we'll show how to customize that in a moment. Below that is the text frame embers. So these are these little embers or spark almost kind of look. That's around this frame down here. Then we have our, and well, we can see too, we have our ember color that's attached to that as well, but we'll look at customizing that in a minute. Below that we have foreground smoke and foreground smoke color. So again, if we turn that color off, then we just go to a white smoke. But that's this layer here. You could change opacities, turn that off and on, however you'd like to use that. Below this, you can see now we're getting into our subject group. So I try to always mark in red where the subject gets placed, but the layer names will tell you here. You'll see the top one, place a subject in this group. This is if you have no feet. And so you expand that group and you can drop a subject right in here if you're not using the feet. And that's because this group has a mask applied to it that's going to fade those legs out of the bottom. So that's just why that's preset as a separate group, to make that easy. And attached to that group, you're going to see darken and colorize lower subject. That's just going to add some color to kind of blend your background color in with your subject a little bit and just darken up just a little bit there. All right, so below that's another subject group. So this would be with feet. If you wanted to do full length, there's no mask on this one, so it's not going to fade anything out. So you could put your feet in there and your shadows and make them look like they're standing on a floor right there. And then again, to that is attached the same colorizing that would happen on this subject group. All right, below that, you're going to see that these layers are turned off by default. These are just another set of the text layers set up exactly the same. The only difference is these are set to be behind the subject. So if you wanted to place this up high with your subject in front of the text, which may work better for some of the background options and things to have that up high, I just wanted to go ahead and preset that in there to make it easy. And so instead of having to move that and change it in the layer stack, if you want it above and behind, just turn those layers off, turn these front layer text, or sorry, turn those on, turn your front layer text off, and that just makes it that much faster. All right, so just below those text options, now we're going to get into our background effect options. So you can see there's 6 different ones here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So 6 is on by default. So let's just start at 6. We'll work our way up. So if we look, we have a layer group here with the effects on the group. So we have our outer glow, and we have some drop shadow, which that drop shadow is actually creating more glow the way that that's set. But if you expand the group, you're going to see that there's these current lines that are running through here. These are independently layered. So you could turn these off or on to create custom looks very easily. The other cool thing is if you wanted to create your own looks by moving these around. Let me reset here. All right, let's try this again. Let me turn off my auto select. All right, so you could move these around to, you know, create different patterns and things. You could rotate them if you wanted them, you know, crossing or in different areas to create different patterns. In other words, these are all layered so you can create all your kind of, you know, your different kind of effects and things to customize this however you'd like. You could even select these all, Command or Control T. If you wanted to size them larger or smaller, move them around to create different, you know, kind of neon line effects back there. Again, so that's the fun of having these all independently layered, is you can really do your own thing. I've just preset some that I think look pretty cool for different reasons, and so those are in there and easy to turn on and off. Now you are going to notice that below each group you have some embers, right? So that's creating that little glowy ember effect back here. It's another group, and these are all independently layered as well. So that if you wanted to, you know, create your own, so let's say for instance we grabbed our option 6 and we shift click down to our option 6 embers. I'm going to hold Alt and drag this down and create a new set out of these. All right, so now we could turn the original off, and you could rename these. You could say, you know, custom 1, right? And then just to keep track, custom 1 embers. So you could make your own, and the reason these are independently layered is because if you wanted to resize these, let's say we wanted to make those a lot bigger, and oops, the wrong one, I had the embers selected. Let's try this again. We wanted to resize these, you know, you wanted to, you know, point them a different direction or something. You know, the idea is that those embers aren't going to be lined up anymore, but they're independently layered so that you could come and grab these, you know, and just kind of put them in line with these current lines wherever it looks cool. So maybe drag that one there. Let's place this one down here to be coming off of that one. That one can be coming off of that one. So the idea is that you can easily create your own looks. So these are all independently layered so that you can make your own custom background options here very quickly as well. All right, so that would be doing a custom one. So option 6 is in there by default. So this would be option 5. And again, there's embers for that. And with each ember layer is a layer to add color to those, which is just a hue saturation adjustment. So you could just come and move this slider around to whatever color that you need. So that's the preset option 5. This would be option 4. Option 3, that's preset in there, almost has like these flames type of look to it, old school flames. There's option 2, which is a different kind of flame or wave type of look. And then option 1 is going to look like this, so that very uniform kind of pattern across there. So it's really just creating these wavy neon lines where you can create and mix and match all these different like cool little patterns and things, which again I just think looks pretty cool. All right, so we'll go ahead and turn this one back on, the default one. If we keep going down, this is some floor glow, so let's turn some things off. If we go back up here, let's turn our foreground smoke off, and then let's turn this text off for now. So this and this. You can see if you wanted to do something with no text, where it looks, you know, trying to create this to look more like a floor, there's this little glow down here that just kind of gives the illusion that this, you know, is neon kind of casting a glow down here onto the floor. So that's what that's all about. You could move that up or down to change that kind of floor space, but it's going to fake the idea that this has just become a floor area. So that's on by default. Okay, and then if we keep going down, this is like a boost of center glow in behind here to add that glowy look. This background, this is one of 2 background gradients that's creating that overall dynamic lighting in the background. This is your main background color. So this is where you come in if you're wanting to change the overall color of the background and pick a new color. This is doing some darkening to the background here. This is adding some overall texture because there's lots of gradients in the lighting in this. This texture is going to just help that look more smooth and help fix a lot of the banding issues you might otherwise get. This is some gradient, again, to add some more dimension to this lower floor area. And this is another gradient that's just helping create that dynamic lighting in the background. All right, so that's all the different layers in here. So let's turn our text back on and let's turn a subject on, and we'll take a look at some options here. All right, so this is how it would kind of come up by default, loaded up. So if we let's throw a full-length subject in here. All right, so you can see I've got a subject here with some ground shadows. And so just so you can see the difference, if I wanted to use him with the shadows like this, right, then he's going to go in this lower group. But let's say I wanted to use him with no feet. I could actually, drag up to this group here. And you can already see the fade starting to happen on the feet there. So let's make him a little bit bigger and then bring him down. And this is what's happening here, is it's just applying this preloaded fade to the leg, so it just feels a little bit more natural and not so eye-catching down there in that lower part. All right, so that's the difference there. So you could turn some fog on. So again, that would be the idea of the legs fading out. It's just going to feel like they're standing in this thick smoke or fog, which is a really cool look. If we turn this one back on, you're still going to get that. It just feels like there's a low kind of haze in there that they're standing in. So again, still a very cool option either way you go. But let's look at customizing our colors here to match our subject. All right, so with this one on, what I would want to do is start with a main background color. This is how I prefer to do it. So coming down here to the background color, I'm just going to pick something from the jersey here. So something like this that has more of that desaturated gold type tone. We could add a little bit of saturation, but I don't want it to go too yellow. I think the more desaturated, the more it kind of matches what's going on here in the uniform. All right, I think that looks pretty good right there. Let's click OK. All right, so moving up, this is where you would pick, whatever background option, or creating your own option here. So there's this custom option that we created. Right, something like that. So let's say we kept this custom option here. Well, we want to fix the glows on these. Instead of being orange, we would do that with this outer glow effect. So just double clicking on outer glow. We can click on our color. And then the same thing, I would just pick like a jersey color. Maybe keep it a little desaturated, just so it kind of matches the vibe of what's going on there. That looks pretty good. And then the same thing with our embers. We'd turn our ember color on. And let's move this more to that like yellow orangish, but more desaturated. And let's tweak this a little bit, see what we like here. All right, I think that looks pretty good. So instead of more orange, it goes more to that light yellowish, goldish type of tone. So that looks really cool there. All right, so then going on up, we're gonna have this is that colorizing that's happening to the subject. So you can see if we turn it off, subject just has whatever color they were loaded in as, which is fine. You could leave it just like that. I like to turn this on, and then again, if you pick a lighter color, it's going to lighten your subject up a bit. If you pick a darker color, it's going to darken them up quite a bit. So I'm just going to come in here and pick like a starting tone, and then I'm going to desaturate it and probably just, I don't know, maybe lighten up slightly. Let's see how this looks. I kind of like that. So it's just adding a little bit of color, a little bit of lightening for this particular subject since they're wearing all black. I like that. That looks pretty good right there to me. Now our foreground smoke. So again, with the color off, we just get that white smoke. And of course, smoke's always going to pick up the color of the environment it's in. So we actually want some color on this. But instead of orange, we'll pull this more to that yellow, but then also desaturated, I feel like, for this one. So it's just got a little bit of that tone. It's looking pretty good. Let's add a little. And then you could also drop the opacity of this smoke if you wanted to just lighten it up just a bit there. So I think that looks pretty good. And then we would just come up to the name. So the same thing on the name and the frame. All right, so let's just start with the top one with the year. So we're going to double click on the outer glow. This is where we're going to come in and pick one of those lighter tones that make more sense. When I find something that looks pretty good, maybe go slightly more to the yellow, I'm going to copy this hex value, Click OK. And now when I go down to do these other glows, so on the lower text group, we've got an inner glow. So click here, paste that same color in. Jump down here to the outer glow. Click here, paste that same color in. Click OK. And then on our text frame, same exact thing. Paste the new color here, go to the outer glow, paste the same color here. And again, that's going to give it more of that desaturated type of glow to everything there. And again, if you want to add more color, just come in, pull that slider a little bit more saturated. And you could always sample, you know, same way, you could sample a color out here, but I always like to customize just a little bit. Actually, I might take this new color for the outer glow. Let's come up to this outer glow here, give it just a bit more saturation. There, I like that. That looks cool. And then as far as changing the name, that's simple as opening the group here and just double clicking and, you know, typing in your new name here. All right, so the text is very easy to change. And just one little thing to point out here on your text frame right here, you can actually change this gap between the first name if you want to by just unclicking this mask and then selecting the mask and pressing Command or Control T. And then if you hold Alt or Option and pick one of these end handles here, you can just move that mask in and out. So if you've got a longer name and you need to pull that back some, you can make that a wider space. Or if you had a shorter name and you wanted to bring that in more, you could just bring that in like that as well. Or you can just leave it by default. So, but that's an easy way to change that gap there if you need to for different size names. So very easy to change. All right, then the last thing that I would do, I would come up to our facial highlight boost. So we have darker skin tone here. So I'm going to pick the upper layer for the darker. I'm going to select the mask. I'm going to grab a white brush. And I'll just leave it at 100% and I'm just going to paint, and you can see how it's just boosting those facial highlights. You could really do it like if you wanted to boost highlights on the skin tones here, you could use it there as well. It's really whatever you want to look up. I mainly just use it for the face to bring some attention back up there. And then you could always change opacity if you want it a little bit stronger or a little bit brighter. So I think something like that right there looks pretty sweet. All right, so there's all the options that exist in here, the different layers, and the ways that you could customize those colors to get your own looks. All right, so pretty easy to do. I hope you guys get a ton of use out of this, and I'm excited to see you on the next one.